All right, let's get into it. Today we're going to be digging into some major construction happening in Afghanistan.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah. So we're looking at these ambitious projects popping up all over the country, changing its landscape, and some would even say, even its global image.
Hmm. It's fascinating how Afghanistan is being portrayed now. It's like a deliberate shift,
Hmm.
from a region known for conflict and unrest
Right.
to one focused on development and rebuilding.
Yeah, and that's what really stood out to me when I saw this YouTube video called Afghanistan's Biggest Mega Projects Under Construction 2024 by Civil Mentors.
Hmm.
It's not just about, fixing what was damaged, but about creating something entirely new with huge investments, billions of dollars being poured in.
Yeah, and they're tackling some really pressing issues right off the bat. The video starts by talking about the huge problem of water scarcity, and they present the Tory Dam as a possible solution. And this dam isn't just about irrigation, it's also meant to generate a ton of electricity.
Yeah, I was blown away by the sheer size of this thing. It's supposed to hold something like 3 million cubic meters of water and irrigate, what was it, 600 hectares of land. But then the video mentions some pushback from Uzbekistan and Pakistan. What's that all about?
Well, both countries are worried about how it might affect their own water resources.
Okay.
Uzbekistan's concerned about the flow of the Amu Darya River, which feeds into the Aral Sea, which is already shrinking. And then Pakistan is worried about the impact on its Indus River system.
So how is Afghanistan navigating all of that? I mean, it seems like dealing with those regional tensions has got to be key if they want this project to actually work.
Exactly. It's this delicate balancing act. Afghanistan has to address these concerns, but also assert its own right to, develop its resources. It raises this bigger question, though, about how these mega projects will affect regional dynamics. Will they lead to more cooperation, or will they spark more conflict?
Yeah, it's like these projects aren't just about the physical structures. They're all tied up in these really complex geopolitical issues. Speaking of connections, though, the video then moves on to this huge effort to improve transportation. And they start by talking about the Herat-Kabul highway.
Oh, yeah. Just imagine a brand new 480-kilometer highway, 12 meters wide, cutting right through Afghanistan. It's meant to relieve that awful traffic congestion in Kabul, but it's actually just one part of a much bigger plan, the Afghanistan Ring Road.
Right, the Ring Road. That's a project with a pretty long and complicated history, right? They've been trying to build this thing for decades, but conflict and instability have always gotten in the way. But now it seems like the Taliban is reviving the whole project.
That's definitely a bold move. It's a massive undertaking. We're talking over 3,200 kilometers circling the entire country. The potential benefits are huge, though. Imagine revolutionizing trade and transportation, connecting remote communities to the rest of the nation. But the challenges are going to be just as big.
Yeah, I can only imagine the logistics and the cost of something like that. And then on top of that, there's the Trans-Afghan Railway. It's shorter than the Ring Road, but super strategically important.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. It's like a 75-kilometer link that could connect Afghanistan to this massive network of railways, potentially opening up trade routes all the way to Europe. Just think of the possibilities for trade and economic growth.
It all sounds impressive. But I can't help but wonder, can they actually overcome the legacy of conflict and neglect? How do you even begin to build trust and stability in a region that's been through so much?
This is a really good question, and it gets at the heart of whether these projects can actually succeed. It's not just about physical infrastructure, it's about building a foundation for peace and prosperity. Which brings us to something pretty extraordinary. Kabul, new city.
Oh yeah, the video paints this picture of a futuristic city, almost like something out of a sci-fi movie. They're talking about housing for 3 million people and creating over 1 million jobs. It's mind-blowing.
It's truly ambitious. Imagine a sprawling planned city across 40,000 hectares designed to accommodate Kabul's rapidly growing population and revitalize the capital. They're even actively trying to attract foreign investment through this thing called the Independent Board of Kabul New City Development.
That's interesting. It suggests a certain level of, openness to international collaboration,
Yeah,
but it also makes you think about the risks involved, right?
of course. Investors are going to be watching the political and security situation very closely. Can they be sure their investments will be safe in such a volatile environment? That's the big question.
It's a gamble, that's for sure. But it also speaks to this larger idea of transformation that the video is presenting. And speaking of global connections, the next segment dives into Afghanistan's possible role in the China-Pakistan Economic Belt Expansion, or CPEC.
This is where things get really interesting. CPEC is this massive infrastructure project connecting China to the Middle East, Africa, even Europe. And the video highlights how Afghanistan could be included in this expansion. They specifically mention the Wakhan corridor.
That's that narrow strip of land that connects Afghanistan to China, right?
Yeah.
Super strategically important.
Exactly. Being included in CPEC opens up all sorts of possibilities for Afghanistan. We're talking about access to new markets, increased trade, and the potential for a lot of Chinese investment. But it also brings up questions about the balance of power in the region.
Yeah, how will this affect Afghanistan's relationship with Pakistan, for example? And what about India? It's a complicated web of geopolitical relationships, and Afghanistan's right in the middle of it.
Definitely a balancing act for sure. But the potential benefits are huge. Imagine Afghanistan becoming a key hub in this massive network of trade routes connecting east to west. The economic impact could be game-changing.
Okay, so we've talked about water, transportation, and now this global trade network. It's clear the video is painting a picture of a country on the verge of major change. But let's shift gears for a second and look at how Afghanistan is trying to utilize its own natural resources. And a good example of that is the Kashtipa Canal.
This project is incredible. We're talking about a 285-kilometer canal designed to irrigate huge areas of desert land. It could potentially transform Afghanistan into a major agricultural producer. Imagine a country known for conflict becoming a breadbasket for the region.
It's hard to even grasp the scale of it. And then there's the TPI gas pipeline, a truly international project bringing natural gas from Turkmenistan all the way to India, passing through Afghanistan and Pakistan along the way.
And the potential benefits for Afghanistan are huge. We're talking revenue from transit fees, greater energy independence, and the creation of tons of jobs.
But again, you have to wonder about the challenges. Can a project like this really succeed in a region that's still dealing with so much instability? And what about the environmental impact? These are massive undertakings with potentially huge consequences.
You're hitting on some really important points. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of these projects, but we need to be aware of the potential downsides too. Which brings us to a project that, despite facing a ton of obstacles, was actually completed, the Salma Dam. It's a story about resilience and international cooperation.
The Salma Dam, now known as the Afghan-India Friendship Dam, is a really interesting case study. It faced sabotage attempts, years of delays, and yet they still managed to finish it. It really shows their determination to build a better future for Afghanistan.
It does, and it's this powerful symbol of the potential for collaboration between Afghanistan and India. But it also raises questions about the future of that relationship. How will this project shape the dynamics between these two nations?
That's a fascinating question, and one that we'll definitely explore more as we continue our deep dive into Afghanistan's mega projects. For now, let's keep going. There's a lot more to unpack here.
So, we were talking about international partnerships and this idea of resilience. Well, there's another project that really showcases Afghanistan's potential on the world stage. The Khaf-Herat Railway.
Right. This one really caught my eye in the video. It's like a key piece of a much larger rail corridor that they're planning to build all the way from Iran to China.
Exactly. And what's amazing is that it's actually moving forward. The video mentions that they had a successful trial run, which is a huge step forward. It's not just a pipe dream anymore, it's actually becoming a reality. So we're talking 140 kilometers of track inside Afghanistan, connecting to another 85 kilometers in Iran.
And the potential impact on the economy is pretty massive, right?
Mm-hmm.
This railway could turn Afghanistan into a major transit hub, making trade easier and connecting it to all these different markets.
Absolutely. Imagine goods flowing easily all the way from China to Europe, passing right through Afghanistan. It could drastically cut down on transportation costs and really boost regional trade.
Yeah.
It's all about unlocking Afghanistan's potential as this bridge between East and West.
Yeah, it's a really compelling vision. But I keep thinking back to all the challenges we talked about earlier. Can a project like this actually thrive in a region that's still dealing with so much instability? How do you even ensure the security of a railway that stretches across such a vast and unpredictable landscape?
Those are really important questions, and they highlight the risks that come with any large-scale infrastructure project in Afghanistan. The success of the Khaf-Herat Railway, just like all these other mega projects, depends on a whole bunch of factors working together. You need political stability, a secure environment, and everyone involved needs to be committed to making it work.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we can't just focus on the physical infrastructure. We have to think about the bigger picture. The social and political landscape, all that plays a role.
Yeah.
Speaking of the bigger picture, what are your thoughts on the overall narrative that's coming out of this deep dive? What message is Afghanistan trying to send with all these ambitious undertakings?
Well, what really strikes me is how intentional they seem to be about reshaping Afghanistan's image on a global level. There's a definite push to move away from the narrative of conflict and instability and instead focus on a future defined by progress and development.
It's almost like a rebranding campaign, right? They're trying to shed that terrorist haven label and present Afghanistan as a land of opportunity, a place that's ripe for investment and economic growth. And these mega projects, these impressive feats of engineering, are at the heart of that campaign.
It's a powerful narrative, and it's definitely getting people talking. But as critical thinkers, we need to look beyond the surface and really dig into some tough questions. Is this genuine transformation, or is it just for show? Are these projects actually sustainable, or are they just as vulnerable to the same forces that have caused problems in the past?
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all these grand visions, but we also need to be realistic about the challenges. What about the potential downsides? What are the unintended consequences of developing so rapidly? Who actually benefits and who gets left behind in this rush towards progress?
Exactly. And what about the impact on the environment? The video we've been looking at doesn't really touch on that, but it's a crucial aspect. Large-scale infrastructure projects often come with a pretty hefty environmental price tag. How is Afghanistan dealing with those risks? Are they prioritizing sustainable development, or are they sacrificing long-term environmental health for short-term economic gains?
That's a key point. It's not just about building shiny new things. It's about building a future that's sustainable and equitable for all Afghans. Speaking of equity, I'm curious about the issue of corruption. Afghanistan has a history of struggling with that, and these massive infrastructure projects can be breeding grounds for it.
That's a really important point. The success of these mega projects hinges not just on engineering and funding, but also on things like good governance, transparency, and accountability. How is the government making sure that these projects are being managed responsibly? Are they doing anything to prevent corruption and make sure that the benefits reach the people who need them most?
It all comes back to this fundamental question. Will these mega projects really contribute to a more stable, prosperous, and equitable Afghanistan? Or will they just make existing inequalities worse and create new problems down the line?
And that's a question only time will tell. But by having these critical discussions now, by demanding transparency and accountability from the people in charge, we can increase the chances of these projects reaching their full potential.
Yeah.
We need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that these investments are actually benefiting the Afghan people.
And that brings us to the core of this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways we want our listeners to really think about as they consider the future of Afghanistan?
For me, the most striking thing is just how much transformation is happening right now. Afghanistan is in the midst of an infrastructure boom unlike anything we've ever seen. It's happening at an incredible pace. It really shows the resilience of the Afghan people and their desire to rebuild their nation.
I agree. It's a story of ambition, determination, and a deep longing for a better future. But it's also a story that's full of complexity. These mega projects hold immense potential, but their success depends on so many factors beyond just construction. You need political stability, security, international cooperation, good governance, and a real commitment to sustainable and equitable development.
And we can't forget about the human element. The lives of millions of Afghans are connected to these projects. Their hopes, their fears, their dreams for a better future, it's all at stake.
It's a powerful reminder that progress isn't just about mega projects, it's about people. As we watch these projects unfold, we need to ask ourselves, are they truly serving the needs of the Afghan people? Are they helping to create a more just and equitable society? Are they building a future where everyone in Afghanistan can thrive?
Those are the real questions that need answers. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I think it's important to consider the role we can play as informed citizens in shaping that future.
So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Dams, highways, railways, a whole new city popping up, and even Afghanistan's place in this huge global trade network. What's the big takeaway we want to leave our listeners with as we wrap up this deep dive?
I think we need to go beyond just being impressed by how big and ambitious these projects are and start asking those harder questions.
Hmm.
You know, the video